Hello, 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 everyone. This is the Reverend Tanika Scenes, and this is Mindful Intentions, Nurture and Drive Your Business. And I am the Mindful Coach. And this is my third interview for today. So I'm pretty excited to have Barry on today. He is a fierce advocate of well being to be able to chase down life's sought after moments. His ability to unlock and define corporate inspiration, purpose, gratitude, and drive led him to his number one best-selling book, The 11 Master Secrets to Business Success and Personal Fulfillment in 2015. Barry's national talks, keynote addresses, webinar presentations, and workshops work to deconstruct an untapped power of subconsciousness, thought, and the science of creative visualization. He focuses on the deconstruction of mindset blocks which surround cognitive fear. Ooh, he is speaking my language today. Old wired subconscious paradigms, inherited thinking, and their connections to real world managerial expectations and experience. I'm telling you what, this is my love language. Barry instills his corporate well-being in executive coaching programs, primarily through 4 inspirational programs. Barry's merging of spiritual-based fulfillment practices into the corporate space not only makes Barry's programs highly sought after, but seen as a secret weapon for employee engagement in a post-pandemic era. Each program is tailored for business who seek to instill an immediate specific blueprint on well-being, staff retention, inspiration, and engagement. Who wouldn't want to work in a business that offered well-being and inspiration? Come on now. Let's learn how to get engaged in our businesses. Barry, thank you so much for, they said the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup, but you're waking up and minding your business with us. So we thank you for being here. Welcome. Tell us a little more of who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
First of all, Reverend, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Every time someone reads that, and pardon my accent, obviously from Sydney, Australia, so if you're not recognizing where I'm from, but that beautiful introduction, oh my God, when I hear it in that way, I'm like, is that me? Oh my God, it's crazy.
Hey, it's you.
I can't believe it. It's just, it's a really good segue to consider that sometimes we don't know how far we've come. Like we're hard on ourselves and we try to achieve new things and we try to reach new ground, but we never look back and go, holy crap, like this is a pretty steep mountain that I've climbed here. This is pretty good. And anyway, I just thank you so much for that introduction.
You are so welcome. And it's you though. It's the truth. And I can tell, I can just feel it from your spirit already. And I want to share something with you from what you said, but I'm going to let you go and then I'll bring it back up later.
Okay. So I guess it all started for me in 2015, as you mentioned. I was in the shoe industry at the time. So selling shoes to retailers that had shoe shops. And I was on my way to an appointment and I had a phone call in the car saying, Barry, can you delay my appointment an hour from the customer that I was heading to? And I'm like, no problem, I can do that. And Tanika, the thing that happened next was kind of surreal. My car felt like it steered itself into a beautifully appointed cemetery in the northwestern suburbs of Sydney, Australia. And think of the most beautiful cemetery you can imagine. Beautiful, big, wide open roads, blue sky day, canopy of trees over every street. So I pulled my car over and I started walking amongst these gravestones, more or less to kill the hour that I had. And I started reading the years between people were born and people passed away. And you start doing the maths with how old people were when they died, when they passed over. And you start to realize that it's not 80 and 90-year-olds. You get 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that have passed away probably before their time, right? And at that moment, I was in a total place of vulnerability and surrender. And I kind of said, God, I know you've given me this job and I'm earning money for my family, but there was a place inside me that wasn't feeling fulfilled. There was a yearning in me and I didn't know quite what that was. So I leaned up against my car, just about to hop back in the car, and something very spooky happened to me. Supernatural. It felt supernatural. And I was a bit embarrassed to talk about this at the beginning of my journey, but now it's just, for me, it's just, it happened. It's true. Get over it, Barry. It just move on with it. And I felt three words bombard me, Reverend, on a level that wasn't quite the dialogue we're experiencing right now. It was on a soul based understanding, a soul based level. And I've never experienced communication like that before. So it's really scared me. And those three words that I was given was live your life. And I thought to myself, well, I thought I was, I thought I was living my life. So after that scary experience, I went back in the car and I just dismissed it. I thought this is too scary to consider what this could be. So I'm just going to go to my appointment, go home and go to bed. And I did that. And then I wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and the word your was burning in my mind, like highlighted, like glowing, saying, live your life. Don't live a life based on what someone else's opinion of you should be. Live a life that's true to your calling. And God has given you a specific talent, specific gift. Make sure that comes out of you in your lifetime, because then you're living a path based on what God wants for you as well as what you're good at, right? So I didn't know what that meant. So I just started furiously writing at 3 a.m. in the morning, writing just a brain dump of what inspired me. And just to make a long story short, that led to a year worth of 6 a.m. mornings of just writing. I had this looked like a manuscript, looked like a book. And I'm thinking, even if this was a book, I know no one in the publishing industry. I know no authors. I don't know anyone to help me in this space. And then I get a random Facebook message. Hello, we publish books. If you have a manuscript, we'd love to hear from you. And I'm like, that's weird. Or is it divine intervention? I don't know, right? So I get in touch with John, the publisher. We went for a coffee, and all of a sudden we hit number one on Amazon in 6 countries and 19 categories on the website, and online courses. And as you mentioned, corporate engagement right now is happening. But it really highlighted to me that when you are on purpose and when you are on target and when you are living the life that God has intended for you to live, that the green lights happen often and they happen quickly. They really, really, really do happen. And that's led me down this massive path of understanding subconscious thought, the divine creation we have in as far as imagination is concerned. And God has given us the faculties to live a great life. And why many of us don't experience that life is because usually they're out of tune. The faculties that we've been given and what people say we should be doing there's actually a mismatch there. And I think that's where we see a lot of the suffering in the world. People imagine worst case scenarios consistently. And if we experience the tangible realities of our thoughts and we're always thinking about worst case scenarios, well, life's actually going, okay, God's going, okay, you must want more of that. So I'll show you some worst case scenarios. And it really has highlighted to me, Tanika, that our thoughts create our experiences. And those thoughts are divinely given. So you've got to really align yourself here with what you want and who you are and the love you want to see in the world. You've got to be that change. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Barry, I promise you, again, what did I tell you before we went live?
Yeah.
That whenever God is trying to tell me something, he does it through this podcast. I'm a firm believer that everything that you just said is, he said, live your life, right?
Live your life. Yeah.
This is what I was told.
Wow.
Walk in your call.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm so serious because when the spirit came over me to start this podcast, I was like, are you kidding me right now? Seriously? Now give me a microphone, put me on a stage, put people in front of me. I can go all day.
I love it.
Hey, I'm on fire. Put me in front of a camera and have me looking at myself and talking. I'm just like, and I'm just like, but then I had to start thinking about, what did you say you wanted to do? You wanted a space that you could bring people on to give them an opportunity to have a voice, to share like-minded people that had different backgrounds that could bring people together. You have opportunity to do that. Walk in your call. Mary, I'm telling you, what did we talk about? I don't book this show. It books itself. I don't run this show. And I told my husband one day, I said, the one thing that I don't run in my life is the most successful thing that I've got going on right now, and that's the podcast.
Wow.
If I did
Wow.
everything else like I do this podcast, man, and I had to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a process, and it's something that you have to practice,
It
because
is.
I didn't try at the podcast. I
Yeah.
didn't. I
Yeah.
allowed God to do it,
Yeah.
because I'm like, if it does, it does, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. But everything that I've tried to do, that I've tried to pour into, that I wanted it to work,
Yeah. You're forcing it. Yeah.
it's not
That it didn't
doing
work.
what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. But when
Yeah.
I step back and I allow God to work,
Yeah.
very, and that's the thing. You get things will pop up, and it'll give you messages on what the next step is to do. But we miss that. Why is it?
Well, I think because our ego gets involved and it thinks it can't be that simple. And it is. It's interesting when you say forcing, because I've really part of my talks in Sydney talk about this. When you put a certain ingredient in a cake, it takes that same ingredient to allow it to rise. So if you're forcing, or if you're angry, or if you're in a situation where you're always forcing something, just know that you might have success, but it'll take that ingredient to sustain it. It'll take the forcing to sustain it. And that's where we're in a situation where allowing is probably the nicest way to put it. And I have this beautiful saying here, which if it doesn't flow, let it go.
Mm.
And it's been something that I've really, really resonated with as well. So for the people out there listening, if you continually come up against resistance, and if you continually come up against red lights, have a look where the green lights are as well. And just edge yourself forward towards those green lights, and then just see what the next right move is from there. And that's what I've done. And that way you're continually moving forward in life. And you know what? Sometimes it might not happen the way you think it should, but it'll happen the way that it was made to happen for you. And this is what I keep mentioning with my one-on-one coaching clients now. God has the aerial view of your life. You have the ground view. And as much as the ground view gives you a good experience of what's going on in the road in front, God says, well, hang on, I can see your life, and I can see the beginning of your life, and I can see the end of your life. You need to trust me that the right moves and the right people are going to come to your life in the right ways at the right time, so that you can live this truth-based existence, which we call purpose. And I think this is where many of us gets messed up, is we try to force things and control things continually. So then we come to a realization, Reverend, that life is a balance between making things happen and allowing things to happen. And if you can walk that tightrope and consistently know when to allow and to stop forcing something if it doesn't feel right, but then, working towards it as well, then all of a sudden you're co-creating. You're not necessarily saying, oh, I'm going to do it all and it's all about me. And so you're actually allowing. It's a scary path to walk on sometimes, because you're trusting a power that hopefully has your best intentions at heart. And that's where people get stuck, is that you can trust God. You can trust his power. It's really interesting, right? And sorry I'm rambling, but
You go right ahead. I love it. Thank you.
okay, cool. So I've got a new book coming out in hopefully November this year. And
Yeah,
the
I saw
book,
that.
yeah, so Move the Mountain. And
Yes.
and and the parable was taken from Christ, which was it Matthew? Oh, you're going to quote me on scripture here.
No, I'm not.
There's a parable of Christ saying, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. And that's where the title came from, Move the Mountain. And ends up being this beautiful realization that God has given us the faculty of imagination, consciousness, and belief. And whatever we direct those thoughts towards, we will see the material expression on the physical plane. If you consistently entertain worst case scenarios, if you consistently put yourself in news cycles, toxic friends, toxic influences, toxic foods, right? Don't get enough sleep, the kids are driving you crazy, and you don't balance that with gratitude and love and joy and appreciation and trust, then you're going to live a material existence that is very attuned to those thoughts. And then you see someone else living a joyous based existence, and then you go, well, how the hell are they doing that? How are they having this free feeling life, and they've got, they don't have many worries, and they just go, how do they do that? And the answer is, it comes down to the faculty that we've been given by up on high, which is, it's the ultimate checks and balances. God says you have choice of thought, and from choice of thought, you have choice of experience. Now, if you don't like your experience, then you've got to check your thoughts. Now, I can help you. I can be a crutch. God, you can say, God, please help me here. But God is always going to say, yes, I can help you, but I have given you everything you need to get to the next level of where you want to go. Just so you know that you have everything you need. So yeah, there is beautiful scenarios that help us and people that teach us. But I'll tell you what, we live in a world that we can get so much assistance. Beautiful podcasts like this one, I mean, didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. So God is working his way through you, Reverend, through me, and through millions of other people to show others that you can do what you like. It's just, you've got to make sure that you believe it first. Move the mountain. You have to have that faith of a mustard seed, even that small faith, and you
Yeah.
can move mountains.
Thank you for that, because I'm going to tell you how much in alignment we are right now. Now,
Yeah.
Sunday, we are having a special guest speaker. I did a flyer for him that
Yeah.
has a mountain on it.
Ah!
And it says mountain moving faith or something to that. Yeah. And
I love it.
then what
Yeah.
I did on our bulletin to introduce him, it has his name, and then it says unmovable faith.
Beautiful.
So I'm just telling you, when you have a purpose and you are living your life and walking in your call,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's evidence. And he said, you will know them by their fruit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how they produce that fruit. And often I question, okay, am I doing the right thing? Am I where I'm supposed to be? And I need to know, because if not, I want to make sure that I am. Because one day I say this, I'm going to be held accountable and I have to answer for this.
Yeah.
So I need to try my best to get it right before that day comes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when things like this happen, it further lets me know that
Mm,
I am on the right path and I'm
mm,
listening.
mm.
Now, what I can tell you is when I get off the path, I know that too, because
Yeah.
things get shaky and weird. And I remember the other day I was laughing because I go, okay, God, I need you to trust me one more time and give me this opportunity. And I promise you, I know what I've done wrong before and I see what I need to do different. Give me a
Mm,
chance
mm,
to show
mm,
you
mm,
that I can do what I need to do this time to make it work. And
mm,
lo and
mm,
behold, it's like
mm,
that quick. All
mm,
the time I felt like I was suffering in something that wasn't happening. And I
mm,
felt like the whole ego thing because I'm trying to
mm,
figure it out. And now I'm
mm,
like, you know what? No,
mm,
I know what it is. I need to get out of the way. And I promise, like that, he came. And
mm,
now, like I said, today, I feel like it's
mm,
confirmation with the 4 podcasts.
mm,
And all of you
mm.
talked about cake. If the last podcast talked about cake and the ingredients, I'm gonna know something. Cause see, I'm not a baker. I got a best friend. She's a baker, and I encouraged her to do that. I was like, "Do bake. You should do that."
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so funny because now that's what she does, and she's loving it. And I'm like, "You can quit your job and be a full-time baker." I encourage you to quit and do it. But anyways, I told my little girl, one of my little girls when she was little, about cake, and I
Yeah.
had a word for each letter, and I'm gonna have to remember what that was. But I told her it's like life is like baking a cake, and then I was like, I told her every letter, and now I think God is telling me to remember that,
Is
to
it was it
remember that.
care, attitude, kindness, and something else or something? I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm just like, this is amazing how things come
Yeah.
full circle to where we are.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that was like 10 years ago when this took
Yeah.
place to now having this conversation. It's
Yeah.
relevant and it's even more relevant than it was then because I'm just trying to teach a little kid something that I'm just trying to be cool about,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
not
yeah,
understanding that it ain't coming from me,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's something
absolutely.
higher that is leading us. And when we
Yeah.
understand that, what's leading us, then
Mm,
we'll be better for it. One more thing I want to share with you that I told you I was
mm,
going to bring back to you
mm, mm, mm,
is
mm.
that sometimes we ask for things. And like you said, we have to look back and be like, wow, we can be right in the thick of it and not even realize the
Yeah.
experience because we're not focused on the purpose in the experience and acknowledging what we have around us that we've asked for because it doesn't look like we thought it would look or it doesn't feel like we thought it would feel, but it's
Mm,
exactly what it is. We just
mm,
have to look at it from a different perspective and acknowledge that, wow, this is what I asked for,
mm,
and
mm.
I need to show gratitude and be grateful for these things because yeah, it might be a mess, but it's my mess, and I'm
Yeah,
grateful for this. And
I
it's
love
not
it.
perfect, and it's not put together as well as I thought it was going to be, but it's mine, and
Yeah,
how can I get better and grow in that is by acknowledging it and being grateful for
yeah. It's so true. I love what you've just said. It's so important, and in this, it really good segue to consider this. Um, Gratitude. In this book that I'm writing, I've got a chapter devoted to the power of gratitude, right? And I've looked at the four major religions in the world, Reverend. So I've looked at Christianity, I've looked at Buddhism, I've looked at Hinduism, and I've looked at Islam. And I've looked at the literature of all of those texts, all of the texts that form the. Interestingly enough, those four religions account for 83% of the population of the planet. So that gives you an idea of just those four religions, right? And I've looked at, is there a common theme? If there was a rabbi and a priest and an Islamic cleric and a Buddhist monk, and they were all sitting around a table and they were trying to find common ground, what would they talk about? How could they build their framework together to try and convince their people that God is one? And do you know what the common theme is in all the literature? Gratitude. Gratitude is the common thread. If you look at the Quran, it says gratitude, you will honor your God forever and ever. Everything comes from Him. If you look at Buddhism, it is all about being grateful. If you look at Hinduism, it's the same thing. And Christ taught appreciation and gratitude. If you can, as a leader in your community or as a leader in your house, if you can look at the common threads that bring humanity together, gratitude is probably the main one. Like, no one will oppose you. No one will say, oh, gratitude doesn't work, or gratitude sucks, or gratitude. No one will say that. People will say, oh, I don't agree with you, Barry. I don't agree with you here. I don't agree with you there. But you know what, gratitude? Yeah, I think you got a point. And that's what you lead with. And that's what you build the foundation of your conversations on. And all of a sudden, can you imagine if all these four religions kind of got together and said, I know we've got differences, but we all answer to the one true source, the one true God. And based on that knowing and the fact that that God is kind and graceful and giving and love based on that, I think we can find answers to our problems here on earth. If
well.
that conversation, go on, sorry,
No,
go.
no, no, you go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if those conversations are just had all over the world, I tell you now, the ego takes a back seat, and God then takes the front seat, and then He will help us to understand the next level. But we've got to get to that first stage first, as man, as human beings. We've got to sit down around the table and go, how can this work out? And be open to other people's perspectives and other people's answers. And although you might be Christian, or you might be a Buddhist, or you might be Islamic, or whatever it is, come to a realization that we were all people and we all love our families and we all want to grow. So on that basis, how can we have more tolerance for other people's views? How can we do that? And just because someone isn't Christian doesn't mean that you pay them less tolerance, right? Like, Christ Himself was a rebel. If you look at the times 2,000 years ago, He was a troublemaker, right? Because at the times He was, man. He actually upset the status quo. He was like, the priests have got this wrong. They're worshiping money. It's not about that. And he was a so the troublemaker was put to death. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't. And here we are, what, 2,000 years later, and we're wiser and we should know more, and we do know more. But oh my God, like sometimes it doesn't hurt being a bit of a troublemaker and standing up for love and standing up for what you
You
believe
know
in.
what? I'm so grateful that you said that, because sometimes I go, I am a nice person. I'm like, why do you have to tell yourself that? Like, who are you trying to convince? I am a nice person, but when the table gets kicked over,
you become the other one.
And it has nothing to do with me. I just
Yeah.
want you to know the truth. But I had to learn that you can't make people do anything.
You can't. No way.
And that was my problem. That I
Yeah.
want to make you get this.
Yeah.
And I can't. That's not my
you
job.
can't.
It's not my job to
No,
make
you spread the light. You spread the light, Reverend. That's all you can do. And then people will jump on at various parts of their journey. Love
I
it.
hear this often in my house, and it cracks me up. First lady. I'm like, don't say that. My kids will be like, first lady.
First lady, yep.
Like, they have to remind me. And I'm like, listen, I'm just telling you the truth. I guess there's a nicer kind of way I can say it, but I need to get the point across. So
Yes,
I pray
exactly.
often. No,
Exactly.
I pray often that God help me to say things and be in a good way that I come across, where I don't turn anyone south from you and turn them towards you, because sometimes people, Christians especially, turn people off because they come across in a way that is
Intent.
kind of off-putting,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like it should be that way. I feel like we
No,
should
I don't. I
be
agree.
open, and everybody's welcome, and come on
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And whatever God has for me, He has for you. But I
Yeah.
think at some point we get to a level of feeling like, oh, I'm a Christian and I'm better than you. And I think we get it twisted. And I don't think that that's the concept that we try to have. And I say we, because I'm talking in general as far as Christians go. I don't think that that's what we try to do. I think that it's like this self-righteousness thing is, I'm in Christ, and so, but that's not what he's talking about when he's talking about being bold in him.
No.
He's not. And so the one thing that keeps coming back is love. So when I think about love, and I think about what that actually means, a lot of times people think love is a feeling, or love is an emotion. But love was nailed to a tree. Love was pierced in the side. All these things that love went through, that I'm like, ooh, I have to catch myself, because I'm like, at the end of the day, are we willing to do that? No, we wouldn't. And thank God that Jesus was willing to take our place to do that, because if not, we'd be in trouble, and we wouldn't have the hope to understand what that looks like. So just the kindness and the gratitude and showing people, because he said, what you did for the least of them, you did for me. And so just the kindness of opening the door for someone, or picking up a piece of paper, or saying hello, or just a smile, that goes a long way. And it doesn't take anything from you to just be kind. But I see people that'll cuss you out in a heartbeat.
Those people, those people, Reverend, I send a silent prayer and I wish them well. Because that's all you can do, is you just say whatever troubles you're going through and whatever's turned you to be this way, I hope that you find solace, and I hope that you find a place inside you that you can forgive yourself, or you can forgive others for what they have done. And it's really interesting, like when I do the talks here in Sydney, and I think the first thing I think about before I go on stage is, God, let the right words come out, and let there be your words. Speak through me as best you can. The next thing I say to myself is, I say, in my mind, I think of at the level of 10, Reverend, people make a life-changing decision. Let's just say it, right? At 10, they find their faith. At 10, they leave an abusive partner. At 10, they find that job. At 10, they go for that job, or they start their business. At level 10. I don't know, and you don't know, where people are at in the room. There could be 3s and 6s and 4s and 1s and 0s and 9s, and we don't know. We hope that everyone's at 9, because then we will push them over into a 10, right? To make that life-changing choice for themselves. But all I do know for sure, 100%, is that when I leave that room, everyone goes up one number. Sevens go to eight, threes go to fours, zeros go to ones, nines make decisions, sevens have a little bit more faith, they go to number eight, and all of a sudden, you are spreading your light regardless of where people are at. And isn't that the point? That everyone that we come into contact with, from the petrol service assistant to the checkout person at the supermarket, to your kids, to people that come into church or whoever it is, that they leave your company feeling that something is possible a little bit more than what they believed before they met you or before they saw you that day. And I think God says to people like you and me and the millions around the world that are inspiring, that your job is to shine your light regardless of the impact that you think you will or won't have.
Yeah.
Your job is to shine. And if you can do that and live your whole life that way, all of a sudden the world becomes a little bit brighter because you lived the 60, 70, 80, 90 years that you were here, whatever it is, that you shone that light. That's the life of, like, you're going to die on your deathbed and go, God, I gave it my all. Thank you for the experience. And isn't that the way to live? Isn't that the best, most beautiful way to live, rather than just chasing money and security and all these things that are elusive? Why not just trust the power that created you and trust the wisdom that created you and just make the next right move from that energy, rather than thinking you have to control everything? I don't know if that makes any sense, but
It absolutely does, because I was going to say, I think that a lot of times when we call ourselves helping people, or we're trying to do things for others, or we try to take care of others, it's a control type of thing.
it
And
is control.
oftentimes it's because we don't have control over our own lives. So we try
Yeah,
to control other people's lives
correct,
instead
correct.
of actually just being a support system, or just
Yeah,
being love is what we're supposed to be, right? Because that's what we're supposed to do.
that's
We're not
exactly right.
supposed to try to figure it out or fix anyone. And my
Mm,
my thing is this: ego does have a big part to play in it,
it does. It
and
does.
we get caught up in that because we think we have to have something to do with it, you know. And I think once we realize that we are not in control,
Mm,
and we're so
mm,
much better when we're not in control,
mm,
things fall into place. And me and my
mm.
husband, we had this conversation about manna from heaven. And I go, manna still falls from heaven. And he goes, well, Jesus came, and now, so we had this big debate about it. And I go, no, no, I'm telling you. So one day he started laughing. He goes, yeah, manna still falls from heaven.
I love
I
him.
said, I'm telling you,
Love to meet
because
him.
if you think, because someone wrote faith without works is dead, and I go, yeah,
Mm,
it's they posted this on here. A lot of times people don't understand what that means, because you have to have faith, but you
mm,
also have to have works, and
yes.
you're not gonna get it by works, you
No,
know,
exactly.
but
Exactly.
it's through your faith and having the understanding of allowing God to guide you. But the allowing is the work, I think, the belief, and the then putting it into action. Because if your
Yeah.
faith is just sitting there, just saying, okay, I'm gonna wait on God. Okay, you
Mm,
can sit in the corner all day and just wait, but
mm,
put it into
mm,
action and to go out and, like you said, to greet someone, or
mm,
to leave someone with an
mm,
impression that is
mm.
going to grow them to another level.
Yeah,
He said, "No man has seen his face," but when we leave them in the growth to another level, that's his face shining through
that's
you
right. That's
for
right.
all the world to see, and he gets the glory. That's our
Yeah.
job. And when
Yes.
we understand that, and we're not teaching that, we're teaching all these different things. And if we
Mm,
just stick to the basics, because it's like you said in the beginning, it's that simple. Nobody
mm.
believes it's just that simple,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's that simple.
It is. It is that
Basic
simple.
instructions.
Exactly. It's interesting. Like we talk about here in Sydney about how life and death is in the tongue. What we say and how we articulate ourselves ends up creating an experience of what we will experience in reality. And one of the big things that it's in the tapestry of our conversations all the time, which is the word hard. We work hard. We play hard. Raising a family is hard. Having a job that we don't like is hard. We keep using these words. And when we say the word hard, we continually back it up with emotion and understanding. And this is a knowingness in me that this is hard. And I'd like us to, if we can, to get rid of that word and replace it with consistent. I work consistently. I love my family consistently. Having a job that I don't like, I have it now consistently, but I want to get something else, and that's okay for me to do as well. Just replace the terminology. Consistency gives us a word that we can actually work towards, and you just got to keep being habitual in our actions, right? But if we consistently put the word hard, and it's something that we've had for hundreds of years as a species, that hard, everything has to be hard, hard, hard. And the universe and God is hearing hard, 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 hard. You must want more of that. So let's give you some hard times now. So I think we've got to really get down to that grassroots level here and go, okay, could we be sabotaging our own joy? And we're looking to God and saying, God, help us, help us, help us. But he's like, yeah, I can help you. That's fine. I'm here for you, but you got to kind of help yourselves here as well. Like, children grow up to be independent of their parents. They don't grow up to be 60-year-olds relying on their 100-year-old mothers most of the time, right? So if that's a lesson in life and God goes, I'm here for you, but you got to learn to walk on your own, guys. Like, this is a big lesson in self-reliance, but I'm here for you as well. But it's all about kind of letting go of those reins and letting us fall down and discover what's good and what's bad and what harms us and what's good for us. And then as we get wiser and as we get older, he's letting go of our hand just a little bit more. And so they're walking on their own. They're walking on their own. And all of a sudden, Reverend, you understand that God is the ultimate Father that has given us love and understanding and assistance and everything that we need to be or to walk on our own, and to use him as a thank you for this experience. Thank you. So your prayer to God should be always starting, I believe, with gratitude of thank you for everything. I don't care what you give me, but thank you for the experience. Thank
Yes.
you for the pain and the pleasure, not just the pleasure. So how can you get to a situation where you're going, I'm in pain right now. How can I on earth be how can I be grateful, Barry, for this pain? Well, if the pain gets you to a greater understanding of love, which is what God does. God recycles all emotions to bring us to bring us back to love. I'm letting you know the fear that exists in the world, and this is just my personal opinion. If God needs to use fear to bring you back to love, he will do it.
He will do whatever he has to do to get your full undivided attention, to get
Yep.
you
Yep.
back to love, which is
Yep.
him.
Yep.
He's love. And
He
that's
is
what
love.
he wants you back so bad. And see, this
Yeah.
is where people get it twisted, Barry.
Yeah.
They think that, oh, a loving God wouldn't do such things like that. Listen, our ways are not his ways.
Correct.
The
Spot
scripture
on.
tells us lean not on our own understanding, but acknowledge him. And see,
Yeah.
we have to acknowledge and we have to accept some things that might be the
I love
word
it.
you said hard, because that's hard for us to
Yeah.
acknowledge and accept that he
Mm,
thinks on a whole nother level. But
mm,
if we
mm, mm,
consistently focus on him and set our minds
mm,
on things above, right?
mm,
Be
mm,
consistent
mm,
in that and fervent in our
mm,
prayers, then
mm.
he will make the path straight. He tells us
Correct.
these things, but yet and still we think that there's something else that we must add to it. So now
Yeah.
there's an extra ingredient to the cake that's just not going to come out right because we done added something that didn't need to be
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
meanwhile, he
Yeah.
created, see, this is like, I believe that the family structure is exactly who God is,
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
is the head. And he gives
Yes.
us the mother and the father, right? And then the children. So when he gives us the husband and the wife, that's the relationship, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so God, he's gonna come back to marry the church. The church is the bride, and the wife and the husband represent the church and the bride. But then the
Mm.
children represent us and God, right? So
Yeah.
we ask God for these things, but then we're disobedient and we want
Well, we're
something, but then
scared.
we won't be patient. But then we look at
Yeah.
our children and
Yeah.
we give them everything they want, or we try
Yeah.
to supply their every need, and they turn around and they want to be disobedient or independent or
Yeah.
self-reliant. And it's like,
Mm.
you don't need to do that. I've got you. Come over
No.
here. Let me take
Mm.
care of you. But they want to go the other way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we
It's so
have to
true.
realize that this is a reflection on earth as it is in heaven of
Yeah.
this is what God is trying to show us. And if we can turn that stuff around that is not of Him and it's not what He's told us to do and get back in alignment, like you said,
Mm.
towards Him,
Mm.
it'll work out. But sometimes He's got to shake some things up to get our attention, to get the focus
Absolutely.
back.
100% correct. Like he's the ultimate, as I said, he's the ultimate recycler of emotions. Interestingly enough, anger, if you look at the core understanding of what anger is disappointed love. Love that's been continually disappointed and disappointed and disappointed and frustrated and disappointed, that turns to anger.
Hmm.
So the core emotion is love. That's what we've been given, right? When we add something to something, if you add a drop of alcohol to water, it will not taste the same. Yes? So if we add frustration to love and disappointment to love, love turns into something else. We call that anger. So it's important that what you need is a fresh glass of water sometimes. You need to pour that down the sink and you need to have a fresh glass of water and go, this is pure love. I can consume this and it will refresh my body. Just like moving into a church or moving into your own spirituality or moving into your own love, you are pouring out what doesn't serve you anymore because it cannot serve you moving forward. So you pour that out and you go, I need a fresh glass. And all of a sudden, when you drink that fresh glass of water, you realize that you should have drank it years ago. It's something that you should have done years ago. And it's okay. You don't have regret over that because it's come to you with perfect timing right now. But what's really interesting, and for the scientific people among us, I had to understand, just taking us off a little bit of a different path,
No, you're good.
um, I had to understand the science of thoughts. And then I had to merge that with my faith because I wanted the left brain and the right brain of my head to try and work together rather than my faith just being on its own. And faith on its own is fantastic. If you can have it, it's great. But I needed to convince the masses. To convince the masses, I need to understand the science. And the science, I go back to Einstein. And he asked a really, really important question that no one knows about, Reverend, that if you do not answer this question, you cannot go forward in life and live a joy-based life. And the question that Einstein asked, and you have to answer this by yourself, is, do I believe that I live in a toxic universe? Or do I believe that I live in a friendly universe? Now, Einstein said that you have to answer that question categorically on one side. You cannot tell me 50-50. You cannot say, well, Barry, there's bad things happening in the world and there's good things happening in the world. I need you to reduce your answer to one word, friendly or toxic. And where Einstein was going with this is you will have, and just as an example, okay, you're out to dinner at night and you've got 6 people on your left, and the 6 people on your left are saying, Barry, the world's a toxic place. And let me tell you why. And they'll talk about COVID, and they'll talk about the war in Russia, and they'll talk about marriages falling apart, and they'll talk about cancer, and they'll talk about the way the world is. And all of a sudden you listen and you kind of go, yeah, those things are true. And then the people on the right are saying, well, Barry, I believe the world's a friendly place, and let me tell you why. And they see acts of random kindness. They see refugees being taken in by families that don't know them. They see babies that are surviving cancer. They see love-based reverends that are out there talking about God's love. They see podcasts and they say, well, Barry, I think the world's a friendly place, and there's my evidence. And then you ask yourself, Reverend, who's right and who's wrong here? And you realize something, that they're both correct. They are both living tangible experiences based on their understanding of toxicity or friendliness. So if you're on the toxic side of life, do me a favor, get to a position where you balance your equation. Don't just sit there and go, well, it's all bad and here's all the examples and I'm going to go have a sandwich. No, 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 no. If you're a balanced individual with clarity, tell me about the good stuff as well. And the friendly people, they'll probably say, well, Barry, I do know that there's these bad things happening in the world, but I've had so many good experiences based on my thoughts that I can unequivocally tell you that the world's friendly. But I've had so many toxic people that view it one way. And this is the thing. If you're a clear-minded individual and you have fairness in your mind, like you think that you're a fair person, that you can see fairness in life, then I'm sorry, if you're looking at things through toxicity only, that's not a very fair view. You've got to go, okay, so talk to me about the good stuff that's happening. Now, the reason that the world is so negative at times is because the news cycles consistently know that the psychology behind the mind ends up being that we pay more attention to fear than we do to love. Love ends up being a passive emotion and fear ends up being an active emotion. But love is actually the basis of all emotions. Like it's the base. So it's the concrete underneath the house, right? Because that's who we are and that's what we do. And anything that you've built on it from a fear-based point of view comes down to understanding that you've built that structure on your own. If you take that structure down, what you're going to find is a concrete base built in love. So anything you've built in this framework of this house that you've constructed, saying to me that the world's toxic, I'm sorry, you're the builder. So you've got to come back to a realization that it might not be the way you think it is. And understanding that understands God's mind. I
I
think that
received that message.
good.
You know, my therapist once told me, he's not my therapist anymore, I love him, but he's great. I got a new therapist, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
told me that I live in toxic positivity because I just
yeah,
don't want to accept the bad.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I said, you know, that's great and
Toxic
all,
positivity.
but
Yeah, I love that.
it is what it is. And what am I going to do about it? I'm going to still be happy regardless because life is good. At the end of the day,
Yeah,
whatever's
yeah,
going on, life is good and people
yeah,
are going to be who they are. And whoever I can reach, but I
yeah.
can't change anything. So
No, no.
it's okay. And it
Yeah.
is. It's going to be okay. I might cry today. I'll be okay tomorrow. It's going to be okay. At the end of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
day, it's going to be okay.
It's gonna be great. And just like Christ 2,000 years ago, the believers will come, the non-believers will need time to think. And whether they come or not is irrelevant. But believers build believers.
Yes.
And that's as true in business as it is true in religion and spirituality. The people, you don't need to convince the masses. You need to talk to people on a heart-based level, the ones that have an understanding, the ones that are at level 9, level 8, that want more of this. They will seek you out and they will say, I want to understand something a bit deeper. And that's what's beautiful about life is I thought early in my career that I had to convince everybody that I was right. And now I don't argue with fools anymore. And that's I don't, Reverend. If someone comes to me and says 2 and 2 is 5, I'll agree with them. I'll just say, blessings to you. I don't want to spend my energy sitting down with a calculator explaining that 2 and 2 is 4. And you know what? One day you might come to that realization that 2 and 2 is 4. One day you might not. But that's okay. That's your journey. But I know in my life that 2 and 2 equals 4. So I used to be the guy that took the calculator out, but I'm not anymore. And if someone comes to me and says, Barry, I heard that 2 and 2 equals 4. Can you explain that to me? Because I'd love to know more about it. That's a beautiful conversation because then you invest the energy and the time. But if you're going to sit there and argue with everyone with every different opinion that everyone has through their experiences, through their education, and through their skill set, I'm like, I could be explaining myself for the rest of my life. So you come to your realization, Reverend, that you live your truth, you live your love, and you live your God, and the believers, God will send them, and the non-believers, God will go, okay, you need the scenic route around the mountain. You can circle the base for a few years, maybe your whole life. That's okay. One day you will realize that you're going to come back to me. You're going to come
Absolutely.
back to love. So that's it. So some of us have a direct route up the mountain. Some of us go the scenic route around the mountain. And you know what? Both are okay because we're on the mountain.
There we go. So we have covered a lot of ground
Too
today.
much
You
crap.
are awesome. I could stay on this all day, but
Yeah, let's
I
let's
want you to share with us a little bit before we get off of here about how we can encourage our thoughts to become those things
mm-hmm.
that are good
Mm,
things that they should be
mm, mm,
and not
mm.
the things that we have been embedded to believe they should be.
Believe. Yeah,
But how do we get our mind to think on the thoughts to make them into the things, because that's what our talk is,
absolutely. Absolutely.
how thoughts become things.
Abundance.
How do we
Absolutely.
get to that place?
Okay, so I'll run through a very quick process. This usually takes an hour, but I'll run through it in 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes.
And then you
Um,
got to go look him up and go try to get with him so he can help you out more.
exactly. So I guess the first thing you have to do is answer Einstein's question. You have to come from a place of what are you producing from? Are you producing from toxicity? Are you producing from joy? And unless you answer that question from a joy-based side or try and get to a joy-based side, you've got to try and find the solutions there. Okay. So after you've come to friendly and you understand the world's a friendly place, the first thing you need to do is identify what you want. You need to identify a desire. So what do you want to materialize? Get really specific and don't just say you want to be happy because that's too broad. You've got to identify metrics that keep you on the happy train, right? So what are those metrics? What are those things that keep you happy? The second area is you have to identify the possibility of that desire coming true. So, what I say to people is if there is something that you want to materialize, is that thing happening in the world right now somewhere to someone? So, is this a true thing? Do you want your marriage to get back together? Have people succeeded in splitting up and getting back together? Is this something you want to do? Is this possible to start a business to do a certain turnover? Do people in the world have these businesses and have these turnovers? So you realize that, yes, Barry, these are possibilities. I see them in the world. The third area is you have to catch the feeling of that. So, what the science is saying now is that to create a subconscious impression, meaning to create a belief, you have to sit in the feeling of that belief for 18 seconds. You have to sit without doubt, without screen time, without anything. You've got to close your eyes and sit in the feeling of what you want to materialize. So the first thing is what? Let's recap. You've identified the desire. You've seen the possibility of it. You've caught the feeling, right? Yes, Barry, I can catch the feeling of what it would be like to be pregnant. I've caught the feeling of what it would be like to have my own business, whatever it is. The fourth area is that you've got to release toxicity. So you've got to be in a situation where you look at the people, the scenarios, and the circumstances that make you feel drained, that drain your energy, and that make you feel bad after you leave their company. Have you noticed that certain people just make you feel deflated after you leave their company? So for me, I identify that as a toxic person. They're a beautiful person, not saying anything bad, but for me, to the areas that I want to climb and lift up to, they're a toxic influence. So I try to kind of keep them on the outer as much as I can. And that's not a horrible thing to say. Just for me, I've identified that I absorb energy and I can't have people's negative states absorbed, or I won't lift and I won't inspire anymore. So I've identified that. The fifth area is to release the timing. And this is very, very difficult. I won't say hard, but I will say difficult to do, because occasionally what happens is that when we want something, we want it now. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. And what we're saying and what this talk's been all about is, can you release the timing to an aerial view of your life? So a source that has a God that has an aerial view. And when you do that, it happens with perfect timing for you. It happens with perfect timing. God has to be ready. God has to know that you're ready for his blessings. Because if these blessings come to you prematurely, you won't handle them. So then God looks at it and goes, okay, I can help the Reverend, I can help Barry. Are they mature enough to be at the level where they can accept my word and spruik it to the masses? So it's almost like a child. You don't give a driver's license to a 10-year-old because you know that they're not at that level.
Yeah.
So when they turn 18 or 21, that society and their parents agree that they are now at that level where they can receive a blessing of a driver's license or of a car. And now they're at the maturity level. So God could be, you could be saying, I want my blessings, God, and you're 10 years old. And God's like, you're not there yet, but you will be. You're halfway, right? And that's about releasing the timing and trust. So for me, it's very difficult to do because I do want things now as well. So trust me, I've created this process for me more than anyone else. And the sixth part, the last step, is to embrace that new reality that you're experiencing. So now that that you've manifested from up on high, that you've co-created with God, that you can get bigger if you want to. It's the same love. It's the same energy. It is the same force that moves a pebble that moves a mountain. It is the same energy. It just looks different in our minds. A pebble looks this big, the mountain is ginormous, right? But it is the same energy. To God, the pebble and the mountain are exactly the same. If you can move one, you can move the other. So get to a realization that with God's love, and I believe Jesus said this, with God, all things are possible. Man, rest in that trust. And just when his love, and when he shows you his love, just know, wow, God, thank you. Can I now do this? And then he'll go, sure, it's your playground.
Yeah.
Go for it. You know what I mean? And that's what's cool.
Amen. Amen.
So
Amen.
that's my little process. I hope it helps.
Thank you so much. Thank you for living your life. And thank
having
you
me.
for being obedient. My husband and I are going to do, on the next Fourth Sunday, not this one, but we're going to do a sermon tag team called Obedience is Better Than Sacrifice.
Okay.
Because I get it now. I understand what that means. I'm not giving up anything to do what I'm called to do. And what I've received in return is way more than I've ever given up. And so I thank you for coming on and sharing and just refreshing. And if that glass of water is tainted, pour it out and get a new glass of water. Refresh. I just want to recap real quick. If it doesn't flow, let it go.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
You have to have a truth-based existence for your purpose.
Yes.
You have to experience the power of gratitude.
Yes.
The framework of gratitude is to build a foundation.
Yeah.
And you have to be consistently doing that.
Yeah.
And then you have to be thankful in that experience. You have to understand what you are producing from, identify what you want and desire, and be specific, catch the feeling and create the belief, and sit in that feeling for 18 seconds, meditate, breathe.
Do what you have to do.
In that moment, breathe in what it is that you are trying to get. In 18 seconds, just breathe. We have life. That's the first thing we were given. If all you have is your breath in that moment, breathe that into existence. Yeah. And then release the toxicity. So breathe out the toxicity. Breathe in what you want. Take it in. And breathe out the toxicity. And then release the timing. And remember that God is always on time. He's no time God. It's perfect timing. And then get ready. Embrace the reality. Because you know what? We were created with a purpose. So have mindful intentions. They will nurture and drive your business. And then just be great. And it's okay to be great because he created us.
Absolutely.
His image. And he is greatness. So why would we be anything less?
Exactly.
The image we were created in.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
God bless you, Greg. Hang out with me. I thank you so much. I'm going to get us out of here, and then I'm going to salute you off, and I thank you for waking up early with us.
All good.
Being mindful with your intentions and just bringing a refreshing word on this day. Thank you. And everybody else, one more show. I think it's at 7:05 or no, 7:10. Victoria's Heart. Join me so we can get one more word of encouragement before we wrap it up this evening. And until then, remember, mind your business. I'm learning how to get better at closing this thing down.